Hello, everyone. Hi. This is a really intimate group. I love it. Welcome to the Ann Arbor District Library's Trans Day of Visibility 2026. I'm Rena. My pronouns are she, they.
I'm Jenny. My pronouns are she, her. And just so folks know, we got the Trans Day of Visibility zine. This is the fifth year that we've done it on the table in the back of the room.
Yeah, if you want a copy, you can pick them up. You can also pick them up at the front desk if we happen to run through what we have here. So, awesome. And now for the main event. For this year's Trans Day of Visibility, we are here with Bakpak Durden. Heck yeah. Bakpak is a Detroit-based artist whose work fuses narrative and visual elements of Baroque and Afro-Surrealist movements to create oil paintings and large-scale murals that depict subjects in transitional states with an emphasis on connecting to the surrounding communities.
Yep.
Heck yeah. All right. Let's kick it off with the first question.
First, I want to say we're big fans of your work.
Thank you.
Oil paintings and murals are a big part of your portfolio, but you're also a filmmaker and a printmaker. It feels like you live and breathe art. Like everything you do feels woven together. How would you say the interdisciplinary approach of your craft was? Would you say it's as much a matter of practicality as one of artistry?
Yes. I feel like it's hard to say everything you have to say through one medium. Like I'm an Afro-Caribbean diasporic person who's also trans, who's also a native Detroiter. And so all of those identities have their own background and history and past. And if I did not, I don't know, acknowledge those things, like through whatever ways I do it in whatever medium, then I feel like the context would be lost in the art.
So it's like the choice of using like a medium like multidisciplinary approach is informed by just like all of the different identities that you want to represent.
Yeah, and also like it's hard to, if I'm speaking about scientific things or physiological things or psychological things, then they don't always translate in just a visual medium. Sometimes I have to do a written thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That actually makes me think of, we saw a piece of yours at the right. I mentioned this to you off before we started a bit ago. And I noticed when we were looking at it that you had portions of writing written on the sides of each of the small paintings, and there were numbers. So we went around and followed number by number, putting the text together in order to get the whole message. And I think that's really cool how it's like this interactive piece almost.
Yeah, that was a mathematical approach to poetry writing within the context of creating a deconstructed still life that mimicked a Beauchesne skull. Yeah, it's a lot of hoops, but you know.
No, I mean, I think it really adds, I think, to a certain dimension of like, you know, what is your audience, you know, going to do? Like, what are the footwork that they're going to put in to be able to appreciate, you know, what you've done to really add all of that messaging in there.
Yeah.
It's neat. It's great. I love it. Actually, yeah, my next question is actually about the that exact exhibit. So we both went to the Charles H. Wright Museum to look at the Luminosity exhibit. I believe that it's actually closing today. Otherwise, I would tell everyone to go. But it's amazing. Everything in there was it was great. So yeah, I'm curious to know like what kinds of responses you've gotten that you feel like have been the most interesting or thought-provoking for the pieces both on display over there and the ones that you've done throughout the course of your career.
Okay, hard question.
Yeah, no, take it at whatever angle that you want.
Okay, so that piece was originally created for the show The Eye of Horus that was at Cranbrook, and that whole show was a deconstructed film essentially, and so people would go through it, and then my method of not having to talk to people is to give them an interactive thing to do, and then I like run around avoiding answering questions. And so in that interactive portion, people can turn in their anonymous responses. And I get a lot of responses most of the time. I think I got 129 for that show. And after the show is over, I just sit at home and I read everything so that everyone's responses are acknowledged. Yeah, but one of the main things is that things are supposed to be anonymous, but I know my brother well enough to know when he turns in a thing. And so he writes things like, man, this is stupid because you're so smart and this is annoying. But then he like writes notes on everything that he reads, and then he gets people to do things for him. And it is kind of like a community exercise. So like if he can't see the top of a painting, he asks someone else to do it, and they're like, why? And he's like, this is why. And they're like, oh, there's something up there, cool. But for that piece specifically, he pointed out enantiodromia, which is a term, that's a Jungian term, which is like when things reach their most extreme, they switch and become the opposite thing. And it's a thing with the consciousness and blah, blah, blah. You should have fun looking that up later. But it's to have balance in your subconscious and your
What
consciousness.
was the term again?
Enantiodromia. And just put it at the bottom of the screen. But so that was cool. I printed out some interesting responses. I have too many, but I'm gonna pick a few. One of them says that it was a beautiful yet intense and disturbing experience, and it was awesome. And I was like, cool, I accept. Someone said, the inclusion of Fight Club makes me think about the way art that is commenting or critiquing, specifically Fight Club, on masculinity, and is sometimes misunderstood to be glorifying masculinity. I was like, yeah, right on, perfect. Someone said, 1,000 years tucked into a synapse knapsack, linear storytelling is for children. I was like, okay, sure.
That almost sounds like some cosmic deity came down and was like, just
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I get some interesting responses.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I think that it's like when I see the layers, like so many of the other piece that was at the Luminosity exhibit was the one where I think you had the immigration papers and 2 sets of hands that you painted on top of the metal print, and that to me was very, very like moving. I there's like a part of me that like, sorry, I don't mean to be like, here's my response, but like, you know, I think that
Do it.
I think it
Yeah.
really does speak to like the desire to interweave a lot of the identities that you have and to make comparisons between, you know, the person that you are and the people that your ancestors were. And I think that that's really cool.
Thank you.
And you, when we were looking at it, you pointed out the claw coming around the wrist. Is that part of your tattoo? Or
Yes.
Yes. Okay. The way it plays off there is very cool, though.
Thank you.
Yeah. I totally forgot to mention this, but after we're done with our questions, there will be a short Q&A session afterwards with Bakpak. So if anyone has any questions that they might be getting from all the questions that we've been asking, feel free to store them up in your noggin for later.
I had read online that you were also a tattoo artist, but I had a hard time finding your work. I apprenticed at a shop a decade ago before my life took an unexpected turn away from it. You have quite a few tattoos yourself, and I wonder if you designed any of your own, and how does the medium compare to something like your mural work?
It's like a 5-part question. I'm gonna
Sorry.
see if I can answer all of it without losing my train of thought. You can't find my tattoo work online because I took it down. Mostly like I don't want to be approached for that. And the people that know that I do it, they know that I do it. And then they even have a hard time getting tattoos from me. So that's on me mostly. But I just want to just focus. This is what I'm working on. Don't look at the other stuff. But the tattoo work does inform everything pretty much. And I did read the zine, and I'm sorry
Oh.
about what happened.
Yeah.
So you guys get the zine. But what was the other parts of the question?
Did you design any of your own tattoos?
Oh, yes. So, like many apprentices,
Did you tattoo
I
on
had
yourself?
to tattoo
Yep.
myself. I tattooed my feet, my legs, my arms.
I did it right here on my thigh.
That's the go-to
Yep.
spot for sure. So I did a lot of my own tattoos, and then I was like, this has to stop. And then I just started making more friends that did tattoos, which is great for trades and for, I don't know, getting good deals. But I have good relationships with all my tattoo artists, even if it's a new person I'm just meeting. And the whole process is very collaborative because I have these wild ideas that I can't always express out of my mouth, but I'm better at drawing it. And so it becomes like sometimes we draw it together or we freehand it on me. Like I just got one in New Orleans and I really love this artist's work. She's a friend of my partner, and then we just like spent the whole day drawing it and tattooing it, and that was really cool.
It's an experience.
It is an experience, and you have to make the time for the experience. But because I am the subject of most of my paintings, I feel it's important that there is some intention that goes into the tattoos that I receive, because I am going to then paint them later on.
You don't want to leave them out of the painting.
Exactly. And so they all have a symbolic meaning in every painting, even if it changes based on the narrative, you know? Yeah.
That's cool that you think ahead like that.
I do. Too much thinking. Was there another part to that question?
I think that's.
I think we got it all. And how does it compare to something like your mural work?
Okay, all right. Compare. Oh boy. Okay, so when I was apprenticing for tattooing, I was working with an old school artist who didn't believe in using thermofax, so I had to do all my lines by hand.
Thermofax, by the way, is
say.
already a technology from like the 70s that's like an old way to make a copy that you can then like put as a permanent, as a temporary tattoo onto someone, so you have that line to work off of the artwork you've already created. So it's
Yeah.
funny hearing someone refuses to use that.
Yeah. And so it was a practice of, first it was like knowing which direction to go with the machine and then tracing out the design that is already created to mimic that. And then it familiarizes you with the lines that you're going to be putting down. But with just the lines and the stencil, you take out all of the like detail and stuff. And so going from that to murals, I'm doing the same thing, just bigger. But I understood that knowing what you're putting down is very important beforehand. Otherwise, I'm up there like, I don't know what this line means and why. You know? Yeah.
That's actually a really great segue. Talking about the way that like you have to take a lot of your tattoo work into consideration when working on other stuff. My question is about lenses of attention and perspective. And you already talked again about how you feel like a lot of your identities sort of have this role to play in helping you try and tell stories and how to create art. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit more. Like, what was the thing that made you decide, like, I'm going to become an archivist. I'm going to become a photographer. I'm going to go, like, marry, like, these different art forms into a larger project. Like, I guess, did that come organically? What did that look like?
I would say it was pretty organic. I feel like I didn't have a choice, mostly because like I got to get it out of my brain. Otherwise, I'm just stuck on the thing.
Was it one of those situations where you're like, okay, well, I got to do this, but in order to do this, I have to do this?
Yeah, it's like when I'm supposed to be cleaning my house, and then I create more excuses for why I'm not doing this one thing, and so I start on another thing. I call it like procrastination dominoes or Jenga, you know. So it's like that. But if it is like Jenga and we are building up, then all the things have to balance correctly. Otherwise, it's all going to fall apart. And so I figured if I want to do one thing in one way and it does connect in this other way, then why not just do both to have it be cool? But also,
You want to get it right.
I gotta get it right, and I don't want to be bored by my own stuff and by doing things that are not conventional or haven't been seen, or if I haven't seen it, then I want to try and do that, even if it's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the 21st century, right? Like is like a space where you can find so much information and figure out how to do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
How do you limit yourself from going like, from feeling like it's too much?
I don't think I do. It does. It feels like
All
it's
in.
too much. Yeah, but I just get so distracted all the time, and so I just try to stay off social media as much as possible. And then if I end
Wise.
up on it, I throw my phone, and I'm like, why am I here? And then I'm like, oh no, I need my phone. But it is, oh man, I did The Artist's Way, but barely, where I read it and I was like, I'm bored. But I started doing morning pages, sort of, and then I just kind of order all my thoughts. And I'm like, okay, this is a priority, this is a priority, this is less of a priority, but I do want to think about it. We'll circle back. And then once it's on the page and I've forgotten that I wrote it all down, I'll just like go into the things that I put in place to be done that day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, I love it. I love hearing about this process, and I love the sort of the chaos and the disorganization and finding ways to place stuff in ways that make sense.
Yes, ordered chaos.
Great. The next question that I have is we're going to pivot a little bit from the works to, I guess, the holiday, right? So we talk a lot about visibility during the holiday. And I think they can mean a lot of different things to different people. We're talking, it could be material needs and access to healthcare, or visibility to legal battles or disputes, or visibility to trans joy or pride on an emotional community, spiritual level. And I was curious to hear what kind of visibility you'd like to uplift this year.
Visibility of accessibility. You can't be visible if you can't show up, And as I was walking into this here library, or actually after I parked, I was like, man, this is a very accessible place. And I have the privilege of doing access audits from time to time. And I'm like, this is how you do it, man, it was nice. It was a clear walkway, the doors worked. Yeah, anyway, so I feel like that's really important. And accessibility can look different depending on everyone's needs, and everyone has different needs. So being able to advocate for that to people who will respond to your needs is very important. I also feel like graceful visibility is important. Not everyone.
Graceful visibility?
Graceful, yeah.
Graceful.
Not everyone is visible or wants to be visible in the same way. Like showing up for yourself is a form of visibility, and I feel like that's important, sometimes the most important. Showing up within community, even if it's not online, it still means it happened, and that's important. But yeah, it could be multifaceted. It could be whatever you need it to be.
Super. I like that answer. That's great.
Thank you.
I think you have the next question. Sorry, I pulled. Oh, there you go.
Do you have any advice for trans people in Michigan? Perhaps advice you would like to have had yourself when you came out?
Sure, yeah. My advice would be do your best to not let other people's ideas or perceptions dictate how you show up for yourself or in the world, especially if it's healthy for you. I had a hard time kind of in different realms of my life trying to be me until I kind of like snapped and just did what I had to do. And then I cut ties with a lot of people, and I've been living my best life ever since. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that. It's so much of like the self-actualization process, I feel, is like really doing that kind of evaluation and doing a lot of introspection. And it does sometimes, it is comparable to alchemy, I think, you
Yeah.
know, like
Yep.
you described.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if it feels scary, you'll be all right. You won't die. The right people will understand, or at least try to understand, and they'll have your back.
Community is important.
Community is important.
Yeah. Awesome. The last question that we have for you today. What's going on? What's up next?
That's
for
a good
Backpack?
question. That's a great question. I don't know.
Do you have any pieces you're working on right now?
Yeah, I guess. I just
Ones that you
finished-
want to talk about?
I'm working on a series that is it's basically a series about not working on this other series that I'm supposed to be working on.
This is that like procrastination thing that you were talking about. Yeah.
Yes. So I have this big project that I have dreams of making real, and I've been working on it for like 5 years. And I don't know, I just get stuck in my own way a lot of the time. So instead, I started painting paintings about being stuck in my own way. And so now I'm working on both of the things at the same time to hold me accountable to actually working on the thing that I want to work on.
That is a big mood. Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate getting all of the insight on like what your plans are, because I know that tends to be difficult. I know that you intentionally make the process sort of opaque.
Yes, I do.
It's a mystery. I like it. It makes me feel like I can look forward to more.
Yeah, there's going to be more for sure.
Awesome. Sick. All right. I think that's all of the questions that we had. We are now at 6:58. If we have audience who are willing to or have questions to ask, I can pass this mic around. And yeah, so raise your hand.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm so excited that you're here. I actually Saturday had your evocative of ingenuity print show up at my house, so then I saw you were coming. So you sent one to Dexter. That's me. But I'm gonna hang it this weekend, hopefully. So I'm so appreciative of your art around the city and just how integrated it is in just the cityscape. And you can go there and you'll see a painting, you'll see a mural, and it's so beautiful. And I just love seeing your work around the city.
Thank you.
I know you were in Paris recently, so I'd love to hear about your work there and how. I don't want to sound like a stalker. I just follow you on social media,
It's on the
but I'm a
internet.
big fan. So yeah. So what were you doing there, and how does that relate to kind of what you're doing?
Oh boy. Okay, so I was in Paris for Art Basel, and I had a piece in a show with a lot of other Detroit artists, and it was a great time. The piece that was shown, was part of a series called Intermedium, and it was the show or whatever that piece was originally from was at Stamps in 20-something, 2020.
Penny stamps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I feel like there's like I'm confused about stamps and penny stamps.
Is there a
and the
difference? Is there
galleries.
different stamps from penny stamps? I
There's
don't
a
know.
school and then there's a gallery, and I think they're affiliated, but they're different, right? Do you know more than I?
Thank you, Octavia.
Gallery and seniors used to have their capstone projects there. Now all of them are at the school, but the school still owns the gallery and displays stuff there. It's usually MFA students shows.
See, yeah. Thank you so much. But okay, so that piece was part of a show that I had there, part of the Envision finalist thing. I can't remember. I think it was 2023 actually. And so the curators for the Paris show picked that piece and flew it out there. And then I went out there and I just ran around on the trains and had fun. Yeah.
Does anyone else have a question?
Back where? In the chartreuse.
Yeah, chartreuse. That's good.
So I guess it's more of a comment when you were talking about kind of finding your people and sometimes just having to cut people out of your life. I remember way back when I was going through school and interviewing for jobs, they're like, you have to straighten your hair, you have to dress a certain way, you have to speak a certain way. So basically, it was like code switching, you had to act white. But the thing is, when I walk in the room, they know I'm not white. So all the code switching in the world is not going to change that I'm a black woman in a mostly white work environment. And at some point, you just have to say either they accept me or they don't. If they're racist or they don't like women in positions of power or they don't like short, kinky hair, whatever it is, at some point in time, you just have to be you. And if they don't like it, then tough. And you just cut them out and stop responding to their negativity and just live your life.
Absolutely. That's a word. Thank you.
That was a good question. It actually made me think a little bit more about like when you make your art. Sorry, mystery question, surprise question. Like when you are making stuff and you're talking a lot about finding your people, do you feel like do you feel like you often have a desire to like curate your audiences, or do you feel like that's you want the expressions of your things to be open to everyone?
I would say it would be easier if I did curate my audience because it would make it easier for me to write these grant applications. But I'm asking people to come to the artwork sight unseen with their lived experience, and then they're taking in the narrative that I'm presenting and then putting it through the whole, alchemical process, basically.
Coming up with their interpretation.
Exactly. Because I'm sharing my experience and my perception and my perspective, but that's not everybody's lived experience. And so it'd be unfair to ask other people to do that. They're not me. They're just not me. And so anybody can walk in and experience it, and I think that's great until I have to write about it. And I'm like, everybody can do it,
Yeah, because you do have intent in your work, and it is hard sometimes to bridge that gap between what people are able to or are unable to see because of their own lived experiences, as opposed to the story that you want to tell.
Exactly. And so I'm there, I'm just a character in the film, essentially. And you project onto that character, and you're like, man, am I the protagonist or the antagonist? I don't know. And then you go through the narrative, and you're like, oh, this is how I feel now, because I experienced this the other day, and it made me think about this, So I think leaving it open-ended is for the best.
Have you ever had anybody characterize you as them as the antagonist to your story?
I'm sure some people could say that.
That's a real answer.
I don't think they would think that, but you know, that's people.
A lot of people think that they're the hero in their own life.
Exactly.
Do we have any more questions from the audience?
Hi there. What about your identity brings you joy?
Oh man, that's good. Oh,
Thank
so
you
I
for the
could go
question.
last, right? Cool. Go for it.
Oh, that's for
Yes.
everybody? Oh, goodness. Who okay. So I mean, I guess for me, I've been trans for 9 years. I will be my HRT anniversary will be December 2016. So I've been out for a long while now. I really do think that community is the number one thing for me. I feel like it's so important for me to be connected to other trans people in my life. It's super important for me to find people who, respect and appreciate me for who I am. And I also really do like to express that in a lot of different ways, including through art and music and a lot of different, you know, things that I do. And I think that that's the thing that like makes me feel grounded. I think, especially right now, is like, even if it's something as small as like cooking a meal, you wouldn't think about it, but sorry, side note, you wouldn't think about it, but like I think it's really interesting that like cooking in the trans community is like this thing that's either like we don't have like any support from like the family structures to help us do something as basic as cooking, or you have like that connection, you have like those resources, and suddenly you're able to bring your A game all the time, always. And I feel like that's such a small thing, but like something like that, being able to share any knowledge, any skills that you have, and making that trans, right? Like to me, that's an expression of joy, and I really appreciate,
Every like close get together like Friendsgiving and stuff, I always make my mom's homemade mac and cheese, and every like trans person in the room is just like, yes, she brought her mac and cheese. It was about what about my identity brings me joy. Well, it's been actually this year a decade since I came out, and at end of this year will be a decade since I started hormones. And I'd say just being able to be me. It's I came out at 30, and so a quarter of my life now I've been Jenny, and it's nice being able to think that big a portion of my life so far I've actually been able to express who I am and not just put it away in a box and not talk about it because I'm afraid that my family will think it's weird. And I get to share who I am with my friends and loved ones.
Nice. Dang, I should have thought about an answer. I was just taking it all in. What about my identity brings me joy? I think being alive is pretty cool now, which is interesting to say.
Things are tenuous at times in the
Yeah, but
overall
like,
world.
I made it. It was hard for a long time, and then it got easier as I let go. And I just accepted. Well, I accepted myself, but I didn't allow the barriers of the things that kept me from being myself. So I'm proud of that. Makes me happy. And then I get to exist in a lot of different communities and worlds, and that's pretty cool because I get to experience it like as me, because I look at old photos and I'm like, man, that sucks. I would have had a better time if I could have been more me. and I'm just thinking about all the negative stuff. But now I'm just like, hey, yeah, that's me. That's cool. You know? Yeah. I think that answered the question.
You just reminded me of,
Uh-oh.
well, that last thing you said, when I was 13 or 14, I got to go on this exchange thing to Japan, and they had all the girls got to dress up in these really cool kimonos, like very formal, and all the guys had to wear the same purple yukata. And so I was wearing yukata and didn't get to feel,
Pretty.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I look at those old photos and I think about what it could have been
Exactly. But now you just got to go to Japan and do it again.
Yeah, you got to do it again.
as soon as I have the money, yeah.
Yeah.
And a passport.
And a passport.
Do we have any more questions from the audience? Got one in the front row. Oh. Oh, you.
Thank you. Thank you for making the trip down here from Detroit and
Yeah.
saying hello to everybody here. Really appreciate it. So my question would be around, you say you do a little bit of film, so maybe, I mean, I could ask a bunch of follow-up questions, but mostly, please tell us what you do with the film.
That's
We have mostly talked about your painting and
we
stuff.
have, and that's how I get you. So if we break down the essence of film, right? I'm doing that, but not doing that. So I do film photography. I create playlists or scores. Actually, scores and soundtracks
Soundtrack.
for my shows. But then the shows themselves are films. So you are in the world of the film. It's no longer.
You've created a first-person experience of a film for people to walk through.
It's more 4, 5, 6-dimensional than it is 2-dimensional. But I guess stay tuned because you never know.
Okay. Well, now we have to stay tuned for like some movie or something that you're suddenly going to take part in. No, okay, yeah, just shrug.
Waiting
Yeah,
for
okay.
a director's credit, in a
I've
couple
got
of
some
years.
producers credits
That's sick.
for. There's a film called Connection Isolation, and it's about trans people during the pandemic, and I was in that, and I was, I think, credited as an associate producer. Yeah, I think it's available through whatever library film things people have.
Yeah, I think you also, I think on YouTube there is a digital exhibit that you put together that displayed either art from the Eye of Horus event or another event where you were basically a call line. You were a robo line, and you could type in numbers and you would get different art pieces. And
I forgot about that. So yeah, I guess I do film. So that was from the Intermedium show that was at Stamps, and you go through the show, and I hide, so no one talks to me. But I gave people a map, and there were signs for a travel hotline, and so you dial in the number. Each painting represents a specific number, and then you go through the phone tree to get different responses based on the numbers that you press, and then you write that down on the paper, you turn it in, I read it, it's a good time.
That's cool. That's intricate.
It is very intricate. I had fun. Yeah.
All right. Any more questions?
Seems like that might be it.
Yeah,
Cool.
going once, going twice. Yeah. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you again for coming on out. We, as I mentioned before, there are copies of the zine, the library zine, out on the table over there. If we run out over there, there should be some at the front desk as well, available by request.
And thank you, Backpack, for being here.
Thank you
and
for
a
having me.
Great interview.
Phew.